Say sadhu 3 times. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Samanta cakkavalesu atra gaccantu devata saddhang mang munirajassa sunantu sagga mokkadang Dhammasavana kalo ayang badanta Dhammasavana kalo ayang badanta Dhammasavana kalo ayang badanta Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa Ragoca dosoca ito nidanang arati rati lomahanso ito ja ito samuttaya manovitakka kumaraka tankami vossa jantiti. Most Venerable Chandana Mahathera, who is present here to participate in this Dhamma sermon, Dhamma talk. And dear brothers and sisters in the Dhamma, you are welcome to Buddhist Mahavihara Dhammadana series and today's Dhamma talk. Today the topic that I am going to conduct Dhamma talk is, as you already aware on that, Buddhism for inner peace. All we are thinking of how to how to maintain inner peace. As you know, inner peace is nothing but a state of physical and mental calm. We call inner peace. Physically, if we are able to maintain our body calm, quiet, serene, or without much, stresses, that is one aspect of the inner peace. On the other hand, if we are able to maintain our spirituality, our mind or spirituality, calm, quiet, serene, in such a very calm situation, that is called inner peace. As we know, all we are struggling for life, for fulfill our day-to-day requirements. Isn't it? Yes. Early in the morning we wake up, since early in the morning up to going to bed at midnight, we are working and working and working. Not only physically but also mentally. We spend our strength of both physically and mentally so that living and maintaining this life. Also fulfilling the day-to-day requirements, day-to-day needs, future ambitions, and also the tackle with the people in the society, also fulfill our relationships with the society and the members, our relatives and so on. In different ways, all we are struggling, that is called we are living. Due to that stressful the mentality, what we are seeking is how to maintain our inner peace. So therefore, in today's Dhamma talk, I would like to draw your attention on how to establish inner peace according to the Buddha's teachings. In order to conduct this Dhamma talk, I selected one of the most beautiful discourses delivered by the Buddha, which is found in Sutta Nipata, one part of the Khuddaka Nikaya, which belongs to the Sutta Pitaka. The sutta is known as Suchiloma Sutta. Suchiloma Sutta of Sutta Nipata in Khuddaka Nikaya. There is a nice story behind this Dhamma sermon. Once the Buddha visited, when he was in Bodh Gaya Sirsha we call, once he visited to the residence of a Yakka. You know, Yakka is a devil in English term, a Yakka's residence. While the Buddha was visiting there, the chief of that resident, Suchiroma, was absent. But he had an assistant known as Kararoma. That is the name of the assistant Yakka who was at the haunt. At that time, he appealed the Buddha, please go away, don't stay here. Why? If the Suchiroma comes to you, he will definitely vanish you. He will not forgive you, and he don't like any Sramanas. He don't like any Brahmanas, the recluses. Therefore, don't stay here and you go out from this residence. But Buddha did not respect that. Then what happened? While the Buddha was sitting on the seat of the Yakka Suchiroma, he returned. After completing his works outside, he returned to the residence, and just coming to the residence, he saw that the Buddha was sitting on his seat. And what happened? You can imagine. The Yakka was very arrogant. He was not happy with what is going on. And the Buddha sitting on his chair, and he got more angry, and then he asked from his assistant, who is this? Then the assistant Kararoma Yakka said, this is a recluse, the contemplative, a samana. But Suchiroma did not respect the Buddha. He said, no, he cannot be a contemplative or samana. He may be a fake contemplative. It means samanaka. He is disguising as a samana or a recluse. Maybe I'll check whether he is a real samana or not. What he did was, he just came to the Buddha and he sat on the same seat with that of the Buddha, by the side of the Buddha, and he leaned to the Buddha's body. Then what happened? Buddha took his body out. Then Suchiroma Yaksa thought that the Buddha this Ramana is afraid of him. He raised another question, are you afraid of me? Then the Buddha said, no, I am not afraid of any of the world in this universe, any of the person in this universe, whether they are Deva, Brahma, Mara or whoever, I never afraid of anyone. Since the Buddha was, took his body away from the Yakka, he thought that Buddha is afraid of him, and that is why he got his body away from the Yakka. Then the Yakka, Suchiroma, who wanted to know whether the Buddha is a real ascetic, he was thinking of how can I test the Buddha whether he is a real ascetic or real contemplative. Then he reminded that there is a series of questions that is available in his mind who have not answered before, and he thought that I will ask the Buddha these problems, these questions, and if he didn't answer, I know what is to be done. Then he said, oh, Sramana, I will ask you a question. If you don't answer, I will hurl your mind, heart. And also I will grab you from your legs and send you into the Ganga river, and something like that. He made a very cruel, what we call, he made such kind of warning to the Buddha. Buddha said, okay, you cannot do that. No one in the world here to make such punishments, to make such things for me. But if you need to raise question, you can. Then the Yakka asked the questions from the Buddha. It is available in the Sutta Nipata. It says, Ragocha dosocha kuto nidanang arati rati loma hanso kuto ja kuto samuttaya manovitakka kumaraka tankama vossa janti. That is the questions raised by the Yakka from the Buddha. What does he raise is, he asks, passion and aversion comes from what cause? From where the passion and aversion arises? That was the first question raised from the Buddha. Ragocha dosocha kuto nidanang. What is the origin of the raga and dosa? Raga means the passion and dosa means aversion. From where does it arise? And secondly says, arati rati lomahanso kutoja. Arati means displeasure. Rati means delight. Lomahansa means horripilation. He raised the second question, from where displeasure, delight and horripilation arises. Then also the third question raised, Kuto samuttaya mano vitakka. Then what arising from what do the thoughts? From where the thoughts, mental concomitants are arising? That was the third question. He says that Kumaraka Tankama Vasajanti, just as a boy bind the legs of a cow, crow, in that way, when these things are arising in mind, we are attached to this kind of stresses in our mind. When the legs of a crow bound into each other, the crow cannot go out very well, right? It will go here and there, just round up here and there. He cannot go smoothly. In the same way, when our mind filled with all these defilements such as passion, aversion, or the displeasure, right, and so on, then what will happen? Our mind is corrupted and our mind is deluded due to those delusions, what we call due to these defilements, cankers. Now the thing is that, the question raised by the Yakka Suchiroma, the Buddha's answer is fantastic. Buddha never said that passion and aversion arises due to another person, due to another external party. Buddha never said. Normally, how we get angry? Due to which reasons? Someone may say that I always get angry because of my husband. Correct? Someone may say that I always get angry because of my wife. I don't like her behavior, her deeds and so on. Someone may say that I get angry because of my neighbors, right? Like that. We try to make them to others, credit them to others' account. Most probably that is what we are trying to do. And when passion, raga arises, we try to say that it is because of him or her, something like that. Is it correct? Most probably we think that all these mental concomitants or the defilements are arising in our mind due to these reasons, due to a third party, any of the other one. But Buddha said that is not the real true. The reality is ragocha dosocha ito nidanang. Buddha says the arising of aversion, arising of passion is not because of other external party but because of oneself, one's own mind, those things are arises. The Buddha said arati rati lo mahanso itoja. Arati means displeasure, not attaching to the meritorious deeds, wholesome deeds, we call arati, right? Don't like to attend the religious activities, meritorious deeds or the wholesome deeds, always try to away from them. That displeasure, arati, arises with one's mind. Rati means attachment. For what we are attached? We are attached to sensual pleasures. we are attached to sensual pleasures. We always try to fulfill our sensual pleasures from eyes, nose, tongue, and also the chakku, sota, ghana, jivha, right? Kaya, body, something like that. We try to attach those things. Then that is called rati. Rati means attachment to the sensual pleasures, what we are going to fulfill in our day-to-day life through these sensual pleasures. So they are also arises, according to the Buddha, they are also arises in one's own mind. One's own mind. And the Buddha said, Kuto ito samuttaya mano vitakka, all the mental concomitants, mental factors, whether they are positive or negative mental factors are arising not in any other way but in our own mind. Our own mind. Therefore, Buddha said that now when we are seeking of inner peace, what we have to identify is all the obstacles, barriers, or any kind of barriers to inner peace are arisen within ourselves, not in outside. That is what we have to identify. Can anyone say that the defilements are arising due to other person, another reason or something like that? We cannot, because we create our mind by ourselves, right? Whether the mental concomitants, thoughts and everything are arising, when they are arising, that leads us, we are governed by ourselves. Therefore, in order to maintain the inner peace, what we have to do is we have to identify from where those defilements are arises. That is the most important thing. The Buddha said that there is a nice quotation in Buddhism. Buddha says the nature of mind. Pabhassaramidang bhikkhave chittang tanchako agantukehi upakkilesehi upakkilittang. The nature of our mind is so pure. Just as a small child who had been born recently. Right? Because the small kids' mind is so pure, no any defilements with that of our old people or young people, right? Their mind is very pure. In the same way, our mind is very pure. The nature of the mind is very pure. Then how it is corrupted? It is corrupted due to the external factors that we insert into our mind. Understood? As instance, Madhupindika Sutta says, Chakkuncha paticca rupecha uppajjati chakku viññānam. From where we get those external signs into our mind so that corrupt our mind, defilements, from the 5 sense bases. But we are taking some of the objects from our eyes. Okay? Our eye is ready to have forms in different types. Forms means rupa. Okay? Chakku, rupa. Chakku, eye expects to fulfill by looking at different types of forms, rupa. Then this is one object that we insert the good or bad objects into our mind. In the same way, sota means ear. From ears we get external objectives into our mind. Until then our mind is so peaceful, mind is so beautiful, so pure. But when we listen the things from the outside, what will happen? Our mind is getting corrupted gradually. In the same way, chakku sota ghana. Ghana means the nose, smelling, fragrances, right? Delightful smoke, and so on. And tongue with taste, right? And also the body with touches, sparsha, touches, passa, we call the Pali term passa, sparsha, touch. So that is how we are inserting external things, defilements into our mind. Then what happened? Due to these reasons, our mind is gradually polluted, defiled when inserting all these things. Then what happened? The tiny ones, child's mind is developing day by day. In the same way, when the growing of the child, the mindset is also changing into the gradually. In the same way, our mind is also corrupted with those things. Then in order to maintain inner peace, what we have to do is we have to identify from where those cankers arises, from where those cankers insert into our mind, and how they are inserted into our mind. And what will happen when those cankers are inserted in our mind? Entire our behavior would be corrupted. When when we have some kind of passionate thoughts in our mind, then what will happen? We are also try to verbally, physically and mentally we try to do react towards those kinds of thoughts, right? When we have what we call hatred thoughts in our mind for someone or some other one, then our reaction also related to that. When the mind corrupted, when the mind polluted with all these negative thoughts, what will happen? Our behavior, the body, and also the words that we are using is also not much positive, but they are negative. Then what we have to do is we have to identify the real nature of those things and how they are arising and what will happen to them when it is inserted. There is nice story in Jataka, it is very well known story. There were two parrots, right, in a same cage, who had been born to a mother, and with a very huge wind, their cage was fallen down, and both of them were flying to both sides of a mountain, a rock. One was reached to a place where the ascetics lived, and the other one was reached to place where the robbers were lived. At that time, after a short period of time, their behavior was completely different from each other. The one who went to the side of the recluses, hermitages, she was using lovely words, and his behavior was very fantastic. While the other one, who was fallen down into the robber's side, was very corrupted mind, and he was using cruelty words, bad words, so his thought patterns and behavior was corrupted with equivalent to the robbers. How they thought, how they talk, how they behave, everything was aware by that parrot. Then what is it talking about? It talks about how we get objectives from outside through our senses. In the same way, our mind is corrupted due to these external factors. Then what we have to do is, we should understand the real way of getting aware on them and how to reduce them. The Buddha's way is clearly mentioned in the strategy that the Buddha mentioned, is clearly mentioned in the Four Noble Truths, right? You suppose that when we have stress in our mind, when we arises any kind of negative thought, negative feeling, passionate feeling, or the averted feeling, greed feeling, hatred thought, we should identify that a kind of bad negative thought inserted in our mind. That is equivalent to the identification of the dukkha in the Four Noble Truths. First one talks about the noble truth of suffering, dukkha, right? The Buddha says that dukkha is for the first truth among the Four Noble Truths is to get to know, to aware on that. In the same way, we have to aware on the defilements, defiled thoughts that arises in our mind, so that maintaining, establishing inner peace. And secondly, second strategy is that identification of the arising of negative thoughts in our mind. It is equivalent to dukkha nirodha, dukkha samudaya. We have to identify what are the causes for the arising of such kind of negative thoughts in our mind. What are the causes? Otherwise we cannot cure. Otherwise we cannot find out remedies for that. Therefore this identification is the most important strategy, so that maintaining the inner peace. The second step is called identification of the causes that led to the arising of negative thoughts in our mind. And thirdly, we should verify that these negative thoughts should be ceased, cessation of suffering. And finally, we have to think the strategies that can be implemented to carry out, that can be implemented to cease those those reasons which were influenced to create such negative thoughts in our mind. So the Buddha's, the Four Noble Truth, the theory of Four Noble Truth delivered by the Buddha is a universal teaching, right? Which can be applied into any occasion. It can be applied into any occasion. You suppose that you go to a doctor, what does the doctor do? The same way he is finding, when we are talking to the doctor, we say, I have this and that diseases in our mind, I feel this kind of a situation like that. Then first doctor identify and then he try to diagnose the causes for the diseases, and then he find out the way that it can be cured, something like that. So any other things we can apply the teaching of the Noble Eightfold Path delivered by the Buddha. In the same way, this also can be considered into this, put into this Noble Eightfold Path theory. Then what will happen is, the most important thing is that how those cankers which are corrupt our mind is originated, is understanding of these things are very important. How they can be cured? What are the strategies that the Buddha mentioned is very important. How to abandon those cankers, those defilements which make obstacles for our inner peace, is also should be taken into consideration. The Buddha has clearly mentioned, there is a sutta called Sabbasava. You may have heard before. In Sabbasava Sutta, it is completely talking about the avoiding, abandoning of the defilements from our mind. The strategies that can be used, that can be implemented in abandoning the negative thoughts in our mind when they are arising, right? So that sutta, Buddha has clearly mentioned 7 factors, okay, 7 strategies that can be used to abandon all the defilements that arises in our mind. How many factors? 7. You know, our mind is corrupted due to different reasons, right? I will say one example. When we are not receiving tasty food, what will happen? Sometimes our mind is polluted, right? We get angry, right? We get angry about that. Sometimes we try to scold, we try to scold others. There was a family in Sri Lanka which I met one day. The husband was very unhappy with the food prepared by the wife. Always they are fighting each other verbally because of the food. He always say that what I am interested in, interest is not prepared by my wife. Therefore, I am not happy with that. Then how those cankers were arising? Due to the food. Sometimes we made certain cankers in our mind due to other some kind of shelters and so many things, right? What I wanted to say is, there are different ways of arising the cankers which are obstacles for our inner peace. So therefore Buddha has classified all those things into different levels, and he has directed the real way of the remedy that can be cured in different ways. That is the most important thing. In Sabbasava Sutta, Buddha has mentioned 7 steps, 7 ways of identification of the obstacles for inner peace, as well as how those defilements can be ceased, is clearly mentioned in the Sabbasava Sutta. I will explain. The first one is called Dassana Pahatabba. The defilements that should be abandoned by seeing, by looking at. There are certain defilements or the cankers that arises our mind that should be abandoned by looking at, by seeing their real nature. That is how we can see it. When I will say one example like this. I know that all of you are using laptops, right? Before using the laptop, what you are doing is, just after buying a laptop, purchasing a laptop, you try to insert a virus guard for what? To the laptop, so that safeguarding your data. Otherwise, external viruses will be inserted into the virus, into the laptop, and it will be damaged. Sometimes the entire data would be vanished due to that, due to the attacks made by different kinds of viruses. In the same way, the first step of abandoning defilements is called Dassana Pahatabba. The Buddha says that should be identified according to the theory of 4 noble truths. Identification of the defilement, the nature of the defilement, nature of the thought inserted into our mind. We have to see by ourselves. How can we see that? Because our mind is always ready to welcome any kind of external factors, whether they are positive or negative, right? Our mind is ready. When a concomitant or a thought comes to mind, before inserting it into our inner, we should be able to identify with mindfully. That is why we are practicing mindfulness. Okay? Buddha says that, mindfulness meditation, when we are practicing mindfulness meditation, or we call Anapanasati, what we are thinking is, when we breathe in, we try to establish mindfulness, right? When breathe out, we try to establish mindfulness. In the same way, when we think any time, when the thoughts are coming into our mind, we have to be aware on those thoughts before inserting them into our mind. There are certain thoughts that comes to mind and just appear, right? Disappear. There are certain thoughts having entered into mind, they are firmly established in our mind. then they cannot be deleted. Okay, they cannot be deleted. They are permanently established in our mind. Sometimes they are not damaging us, not only this life but also entire sansaric life. It follows us even to the next life, right? Certain thoughts are available which were fully concrete, fully established in our mind. Therefore, what we have to do is we should identify those thoughts before inserting into our mind on its doorstep. Then we can block before inserting them into our mind. So that is the Dassana Pahatabba as mentioned by the Buddha, seeing, looking at the defilements before when they are coming into our mind. So that we should be mindful in searching, in seeing of those cankers when they are inserting into our mind. That is the first step. Most probably what we are doing is, first we let such negative thoughts to enter into our mind. After that we try to find out how to put it away. Right? That is what we are doing. Right? Then what we have to do is, before inserting them into inside, we have to block them, whether if they are negative. So that aware on that those defilements in that way is the most effective way of abandoning such kind of defilements, which are damage to our inner peace. One hand. Secondly, the Buddha says, Samvara Pahatabba, abandoning the cankers or the defilements that can be abandoned by restrainment. Right? Samvara. Samvara means restraining, due to which how those defilements or the cankers insert into our mind. We have to restrain them. There are no more ways. As I mentioned earlier, only 5 bases we have where cankers or defilements are inserted into our mind. Only 5 bases. What are the 5? Eye. Yes? Sota means ear, Ghana, nose, Jivha, tongue, and Kaya, body. Right? These are the only 5 bases that the defilements are inserted into our mind through through forms, sounds, smell, tastes and touches. Right? From these 5 bases, the defilements are inserted into our mind. Then we have to identify that, and the Buddha says we have to practice the restrainment to control such kind of defilements that are inserted into our mind. That is called Samvara Pahatabba. Why we need to restrain them? Why we need to restrain these 5 bases? If we don't restrain, what will happen? We will be fallen down in our status due to our bad behavior. You suppose that the eye never say that it is enough for looking at different kinds of beautiful pictures, right? It never satisfies. That is the nature of eye. The tongue never satisfies what we are tasting, right? So we are searching of different kinds of taste day by day. That is the nature. If we try to fulfill all those things as expected by our five bases, then what will happen? We don't have any limitation, and as a result of that, we would be fallen into hell. So what we have to do is, therefore we should try to restrain these bases when the defilements, cankers are inserted into through those bases. So there are certain things, certain cankers that should be abandoned by restrainment. So that can be done by only yourself, right? Others cannot do that. Others cannot do others cannot control your scenes, right? You have to control yourself. And the third one, the Buddha says patisevana. Patisevana means what? Patisevana means using. Patisevana means using, reflecting. The cankers that should be abandoned by reflecting. As instance, I mention one example about the food, right? Most probably we are having 4 requisites: clothing, food, shelters, and medicinal requirements or the medications. Those are the 4 requisites. Sometimes we create, arises ourselves the defilements in our mind due to those things, those material things. As I said, one example about food, right? Something like that. Then what we have to do is, we have to abandon such defilements by reflecting the usage of them. I will say one example from the Buddha's biography. When Buddha going on alms round, he did not select any specific place. His alms round is known as Sapadana Charika. Sapadana Charika means while he was going on alms round, gradually, house by house, Buddha went on that street without skipping the houses of the low caste people or higher caste people. Sometimes when the Buddha received royal food, while certain days while he was receiving the very rough food like yava or whatever it is, Buddha never satisfied or dissatisfied. He did not made any kind of difference in those both experiences. Then what we have to do is, we have to reflect why we are using food, why we are using clothes, what is the purpose of using medication, what is the purpose of using shelters. That is why Buddha pointed out, Buddha instructed us, you know very well, before having food, Mahasangha says, Patisankayoniso, Pindapatam Patisevami, Nevadavaya, Namadaya, Namandanaya, Navibhusanaya, right? We reflect the necessity of the food. This is not for making our body strength, right? This is not to maintain our body in, what we call beautiful, something like that. This is only for the existence of the individual. That is how we can be simply, and we can control some of the defilements which are coming into our inner, our mind, right, with the method of reflecting its usage, right. In the same way, the usage of the clothing, shelters, medication, food and everything, we have a method of reflecting the usage of them. Then what will happen? Then we can control the inserting of such kind of defilements into our mind. If then what I did was, for that person who came to the temple to get advice from me with regard to the problem of food, I advised him, this is the way that the Buddha instructed us to think of in using food. I explained, then just he identified, understood what is going on, what happened. No more he made any argument with the wife with that understanding. You see how we can apply Buddhism into maintaining inner peace. So that is called Patisevana. Then Adivasana. Adivasana means tolerating. There are certain cankers, certain defilements which we have to tolerate without making them a stress into our life. What are they? In summer we feel hot. In winter we feel cold. Sometimes we feel hungry, right? And also sometimes we feel thirsty. And also there are certain situations we have to tolerate the inhuman influences, right? Or the natural things, natural disasters, something like that, right? They are the universal things. The hot, cold, thirsty, hungry, they are the universal things, right? They cannot be, sometimes they cannot be controlled without tolerating them. Without tolerating them, right? We call adivasana, tolerate. So therefore, sometimes when we get hungry, we get angry. Am I correct? Yes. If we don't receive something to eat when we feel hungry, as a reaction we get angry. So what we have to do is, without creating angry thoughts in our mind, we should try to tolerate that thought of feeling hungry. That is how Buddha mentioned. For some extent, we cannot do that everywhere, every place. No need to tolerate all the time. We should maintain our life very free without tolerating always. But in such a situations, we can overcome those cankers by contemplating such kind of thoughts. That is why Buddha said adivasana or the adivasana pahatabba. Then next one says, parivajjana pahatabba. Parivajjana means avoiding. There are certain situations that we have to take into consideration. In that situation, we have to avoid certain things. We'll say one example. The Buddha says, most probably our mind is corrupted due to the bad associations, due to the association of bad people, right? Wrong people like, Papa Mitra, bad friends. Then when they are suggesting us to do certain wrong things, wrong behaviors, bad things, at that time, the Buddha said that what we have to do is parivajjana pahatabba, means we should try to avoid them without associating them. Because we should identify that those ignoble friends are also the one who made our mind corrupted, one who tried to corrupt our mind, then should avoid them. That is called parivajjana pahatabba. And then Buddha said another one is called vinodana pahatabba, right? Vinodana means dissipating. Certain cankers that should be dissipate with the thought of what we call, there are certain thoughts that comes into mind, thought of sensuality. We call kama vitarka, right? Thoughts of sensuality, kama vitarka. Then vyapada vitarka, thought of ill will. Then vihinsa vitakka, thought of, what we call thought of cruelty. Different kinds of thoughts are arising in our mind. Then what we have to do is, we have to think of the consequences of those thoughts, consequences or the results of such kind of thoughts. Having reflected the consequences of such thoughts, you should be able to dispel them with effort, right? Kama vitarka, vyapada vitarka, vihinsa vitarka. Kama means the thoughts of sensuality, vyapada, thoughts of ill will, vihinsa, thought of cruelty. When such kind of thoughts are arising, we have to dispel them from our mind. And the last one says bhavana pahatabba. There are certain things, certain defilements, cankers that should be abandoned by developing our mind. What is to be developed? The Buddha mentioned that sati, dhamma vichaya, viriya, piti, passaddi, samadhi, upekka. These are called 7 factors of awakening. 7 factors of awakening, right? Sati means mindfulness. Dhamma vichaya, persistence. Something like that. We have to identify and practice those 7 factors of awakening. We have to develop them. That is the final step of overcoming those cankers. That is called bhavana. So that we have different types of bhavana, methods of meditations prescribed by the Buddha. We'll say one example. When arises certain, ill will, the thoughts of ill will, hatred, at that time, what we have to develop the loving kindness meditation. Then what happened? When loving kindness meditation is practiced, then our mind is filled with certain positive thoughts. Then we can control inserting such kind of ill will thoughts into our mind. In the same way, we can practice anapanasati, breathe in and breathe out meditation, and also vipassana, right? Looking at the reality of the world with reference to anicca, dukkha and anatta, and different kind of meditation practices. Asubha meditation, and also something like anussati, metta bhavana, samatha bhavana, different kinds of objectives can be practiced, developed as a way of meditating. Then by practicing that, we can avoid such kind of defilements to be inserted into our mind. Then what I wanted to say is, in order to maintain inner peace, what we have to do is, we should try to control our mind by ourselves. Most probably, the Buddha says that, Durang gamang ekacarang asarirang guhasayang yes chittang sanya messanti mokhanti mara bandhanam. Buddhism is a psychology on one hand, because it talks about our mind. It mentions that the real nature of the mind is, it cannot be controlled very easy. It looks like an untamed bull. Okay, Buddha says, mind looks like an untamed bull. Why? When untamed bull goes on a road, it will hurt everyone who is meeting on the way, who are meeting on the way. Right? In the same way, our mind is equivalent to untamed bull. Then what we have to do is, we should try to tame that mind. It can be done only by ourselves, others cannot do. The parents can advise, teachers can advise, religious teachers can instruct them, right? Or different kinds of ways we can gain knowledge, but the practice is one's own duty, one's own responsibility. Others cannot do, others cannot change how I am thinking, how I am behaving, right? And something like that. Therefore, the Buddha said, we are responsible for ourselves. We are responsible for our Savior. No one can save us. No one can send us to the heaven. If it is so, the Buddha may be able to take his stepbrother Devadatta to attain Nibbana or the heaven? Cannot. That depends on how we behave, how our thought patterns are carried out. Right? Therefore, in order to maintain inner peace, what we have to do is we should try to get the control of our mind into our hand. Otherwise, we never experience the inner peace. Therefore, dear Dhamma friends, in today's talk, what I wanted to say is we should try to see our mind. We should try to see our mind. We should try to control our mind. We should try to control using different strategies that the Buddha instructed, so that controlling our mind, that would be the only way for our inner peace. Otherwise, we are suffering, we are feeling stress, and we are making different kinds of negative thoughts in our mind, and we are burning ourselves without having such kind of happy in our long lasting happy in our inner, right? Therefore, we should think of that. If we can change ourselves if we can change us by ourselves, then we can have a very peaceful, calm, quiet, serene, or the happy life, this life and hereafter. That is what we are talking about, inner peace. So therefore, with that thoughts, we will open the discussion right now. If you have any question or comment, you can make right now. Yes, anything to clarify or any question?
But for a husband and wife, if both are Buddhists, both are learning, but one party doesn't seem to be aggressive to that. And that's where we get angry, we get expectation. So you say it's inner peace. Yes, we have to change ourselves, not the others. Mm-hmm. That is, we understood.
That in that sense, husband and wife, they should have a mutual understanding, right? That is the most important thing. If there is no mutual understanding, cannot survive such kind of a family life. It looks like a monorail. In a monorail, we have only one rail, therefore we can manage alone. But the companionship between husband and wife, it looks like a MRT. Without one railings, we cannot go, right? In the same way, both should be balanced. In the same way, what we have to do is, we should try to make a very good understanding of each other, how they think, how they work, what they are interested in, how they can happy with that companionship, and such kind of mutual understanding is must. We know that humans are different from each other, right? Even we will say like this, even the 2-3 sons who had been born to one's own mother are different, right? They don't think equally, they don't work equally. Their thought patterns, their behavior and everything, sometimes they are totally different. In that sense, a husband and wife who is associating from different two parties, physically, mentally, spiritually, it is very difficult to match. But through the discussions, through the what we call tolerating each other, through understanding, we should try to understand the to make a mutual understanding. Then we can maintain them very easily. Otherwise cannot. Sometimes there is no answer for such questions. That has to be maintained only by them. Even though we say many teachings from the Buddhism, Buddhist teachings, how Buddha said about family life, cannot. That is what we have to make by ourselves. I think I don't have personal experience, but for my understanding, that is what that is answer I have to give. I think no more questions, right? We will wind up today's Dhamma talk. Yeah.
You explained about the child having a pure mind. Let me give a hypothetical situation where the child is deaf and dumb. The two senses are more or less blocked. So would it be easier for that child to achieve inner peace because he's deaf and dumb?
No, cannot. It is the very difficult case, right? Because one will say, if a child can see the world, the mother can really understand the expressions. If he is able to talk or even cry, in the same way mother can see the expressions of him. Otherwise, all the behavior is the same, right? Otherwise, since he is not able to express his feelings, his thoughts and everything, how mother or any other people can understand the nature of the child? Then that child may get more aggressive, since he has no alternative to express his thoughts, ideas, or the requirements, or whatever it is. So then cannot make such kind of, then I think that cannot be done. But when we are, most probably when we are able to communicate in any mode, verbally, verbal communication or the physical communication, or the body language, whatever it is, then we can express the things, and then that is the way of making inner peace like that. Before, as you said deaf or whatever with that disabilities, such kind of a child cannot do that, for my understanding. I think you got.
Blind. The child is also deaf. So there's no sight. It's coming only to mind on one end, one of the senses. If it's deaf again, one of the other senses is blocked. So corrupt their mind will be very difficult, isn't it?
I'll say one example, right? There was a belief by the time of the Buddha. There was a belief by the time of the Buddha, what we call Udaka Parishuddhi. Udaka Parishuddhi means dipping into water, right? By the time they believed that by dipping on water, one can be purified. Okay. Then that was also taken to the Buddha, one Brahmin, and the Buddha said, if you say like that, if you say that dipping on water, underneath water, if you are able to purify, most purified beings are the who are underneath the water, like what we call fish or the whatever it is, who are in the water, right? In the same way, there is another example. There is a sutta known as Indriya Bhavana. This Indriya Bhavana sutta gives the most influential answer to that question. There were different kinds of recluses by the time of the Buddha. They said Indriya Bhavana means meditation on our faculties, like Then different kinds of monks who approached the Buddha, they said that Indriya Bhavana is not looking at the scenes, pictures or whatever it is, right? Or someone said that Indriya Bhavana is not hearing the sounds which are available outside. Something like that. Buddha said no. Indriya Bhavana is what we experience. We have to see them, we have to experience the forms, and finally we should identify the consequences of them. Then if we are able to restrain them, that is the proper way of Indriya Bhavana, meditation, concentration on Indriya, right? In the same way, in the same sutta, Buddha says, deaf and blinds, right? Whether they are not seeing, not hearing any sound from outside, that is not the way of Indriya Bhavana. Buddha said that if not looking at the pictures or forms, if doesn't listening to the sounds outside, if it is the proper way of Indriya Bhavana, the Buddha said that definitely deaf and blinds will be the one who practice Indriya Bhavana very well. It means that that is not the way. There may be certain disabilities like that, but we cannot say that due to that disabilities no inserting certain defilements into our mind, our inner, right? They can be inserted in different ways. The thing is that they cannot express. If as instance, a deaf person, if we try to say something, he cannot hear, but he creates the thoughts by himself, even though he cannot express them to outsiders. Something like that, I think. Okay, let's wind up today's Dhamma talk. I suppose that you understood what I am trying to explain through today's Dhamma talk. So, first of all, we respected, honored to the Buddha by conducting Buddha Vandana, and then we invited the Devas to come and hear Dhamma, and we listened to Dhamma talk, and we paid our attention on the Dhamma. Listening Dhamma and the teaching Dhamma is also, both are the meritorious deeds as mentioned by the Buddha. We did different kinds of meritorious deeds in this great evening. So we have accumulated much merits through participating in today's Dhammadana's program, and we will transfer those merits to the departed ones. You may remind all the departed ones, and may they be well and happy. May they have a very serene and peaceful sansaric existence, having ward off all the calamities, diseases, difficulties and all inhuman things, and may they be well and happy, and may they be able to attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Say sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Also, we will dedicate the merits that we have accumulated to the deities or the gods who are safeguarding our life, and may they have a pleasure and happy full life wherever they are, their states, and finally, may they safeguard ourselves and our family members. May they be well and happy in their states. Say sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Finally, even today we conducted a Dhamma sermon, Dhamma talk, and we listened to Dhamma, and we transferred merits to the God and departed ones. Through those ways we accumulated much merit. Due to the power of the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, due to the power of the merit that we accumulated, may all you be well and happy. May all the calamities, diseases or any kind of stresses that arises in your mind, may they ward off with the power of the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, and also this meritorious deed. May you be well and happy in this life. May you be able to attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana in your sansaric life, in your sansaric journey. No more going so many sansaric existences. So with that, greetings or the blessings, today's Dhamma talk will be concluded. Thank you very much for your patience, hearing and participation. Akasattha ca bummatta deva naga mahiddhika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkhantu loka sasanang. Akasattha ca bummatta deva naga mahiddhika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkhantu loka sasanang. Akasattha ca bummatta deva naga mahiddhika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkhantu loka sasanang. Abhivadana silissa niccang vaddapachayino chattaro dhamma vaddanti ayuvanno sukhang balang ayurarogya sampatti sagga sampatti mevacha ato nibbana sampatti iminate samijjatu. Sukhi hotu. May you be well and happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you, Bhante Professor Yasassi, for that very enlightening and interesting Dhamma sharing this evening. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you on behalf of the Committee of Management and also the monks of the Wisma for being with us and sharing your Dhamma knowledge. Bhante will be here again on Sunday for his second Dhamma sharing. The list of talks are listed here. You can also look at it on our Facebook pages. Tomorrow we have Bhante Dhirananda here at 8 p.m. who will be talking on the 7 factors of enlightenment. And we are cordially invited to join us, and also your family and friends to do inform them. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Thank you once again. Have a blessed evening.